today in our journal entry about the soul space, and the biggest question that I get is, hey, that soul strength stuff, how do I get more of that? Like, how do I actually do that? And I know that a lot of times when you hear the word soul, you automatically go to religion, God, all of the everything in and around that, church, all of that stuff, okay? And I know that that word holds a lot of association with that, because really that's the only place we're ever talked to about the soul, is if you went to church or went to Sunday school, or you don't hear about that spiritual element of what you are unless you are in that realm, okay, in those type of environments, okay. But when I talk about soul space, it is just as relevant to your everyday life, even though we can't see it, hear it, feel it, touch it. It is just as relevant. And I meant to do this unlisted, but I think I'm going live, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It is just as relevant as that physical plane of existence, which is this, what you see around you, that mental plane of existence, which you're all very attuned to. Like, you can hear it, you can't see it, but you know it's there and you can hear it, and it really has a big impact on your physical world. And then there's the spiritual side that is just rarely talked about. And so, if it's rarely talked about, most of us don't know much about it. We don't know how to enter it. We don't know how to interact with it. And we don't know how to get grounded in that space. But that space there holds a big key and a big significance to what we're all seeking from our physical world and our mental world. So most of us live most of our life in that mental plane of existence. Now, there are some people born into this world who are just more, they kind of have one, they never really left the spiritual. So they're still very strongly connected, and they know that it exists, just like they know that mental world exists, and then they know that physical world exists. I remember it being a really little girl, 6 or 7, and looking in the mirror. And I was standing there and I was looking in the mirror, and I wasn't looking at my face or anything, like I was looking in my eyes. And I remember having the thought, I'm in there. I'm in there. I'm not this. I'm in there. And it was like, yeah, like I'm not. I remember thinking it was weird that I knew what I was in there. if that makes sense. So when I talk about the soul space, I'm talking about that space, that level of existence that exists outside of the mind. Okay? And a lot of times we try to get there with our mind, and we just can't do it because that's not a mental realm of existence. And so our mind doesn't understand it. Our mind can't put language around it. So we don't know how to tap into it and how to get stronger in that. So the big question that I had from several of sessions that I had this week was, how do I get more of that? That soul strength that you talk about, how do I get more of that? And the way that you get more of that is one very key piece of information is to shift your focus. Wherever your consciousness or your conscious attention, your focus goes, wherever that goes, then that is what is getting stronger. That is the space that you are visiting and becoming more familiar with and getting stronger within. If you are constantly thinking you are your mind, constantly listening to the commentary that your mind says all of the time, your focus is there, which means you are existing in that mental plane. For some people, and if you're an earth sign, Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus, if you're into astrology, sorry, I've got to sneeze. Oh. I'm sorry. if you're in the, if you're in the more earthly grounded signs of astrology, if you came in like that, if you're a more logical thinker, you're probably not watching this right here. But if you're a more logical thinker, you don't even you're not even in the mental plane. You're just very in the physical plane, and those people seem to have a more peaceful existence than those who live in the mental plane more than they live in the physical. But they're still not connected to the spiritual plane. Now, sometimes those people who don't do self-help, they never have a mental problem, they're just very logical, they don't get into emotional stuff, they're just going through life, and they're very grounded in their physical. Sometimes they actually have an easier time accessing the spiritual plane. And you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't think, because usually they're oblivious to anything that's not in the physical world. But if they wanted to, they would probably have an easier time tapping into that space just because they're not tied up in their mental plane. Those of us, me included, will raise my hand and take credit. I'll own up to that one. Have lived in that mental plane. But I've also had a great awareness of the spiritual plane of existence all through my life as well. I've always been drawn to it, curious about it. If there was anything I could read about it, get my hands on about that place I knew existed, I knew I was part of, I knew was all around me, but I couldn't see it, the unknown, the unseen. I had a strong curiosity in that, but I was also suffering with a mind, which made it difficult to connect to that as fully as I could. So, how do we get more soul strength? The muscle you use is the muscle that gets stronger. Okay? If you're constantly just living in the physical and you never visit any spiritual spaces, you never even think, like, that's the muscle that gets stronger. If you're constantly giving your mind the attention, whatever your mind is saying about this, and the mind is playing a game. That mental plane of existence is a game. Much of what it tells you isn't true, and it has you observe other people, it has you observe yourself, it has you label, judge. It's got a story to tell about everything. It's trying to protect its identity here. It's building an ego. If you're giving that your attention, then that's what's going to get stronger. That ego. Now, to start, if that's been you, that's okay, because that has been me too. But I'd also go back and forth. It's like, I touch that place, and then I'm back in the game. I'm back in my mental plane of existence, mental and physical. And usually the mental plane of existence is always talking about the physical plane and what's going on and what you should be doing and what should be happening and where should I go next and what's my purpose, and all that stuff exists in the mental plane. So if you're tied up in thinking about those things, trying to figure things out, you're strengthening the mental plane. You're not practicing soul strength. You're practicing the mental plane, which means you're going to suffer, which means you're going to be on the seesaw and going up and down. And the people that I've been talking to in sessions now are realizing they've suffered enough with their mind It's caused enough drama, enough chaos. They want off of that. And they want to sit in that center space of the in-between. Seesaw going up and down here in the middle. It's complete balance. And in that complete balance space of the in-between, which means, what does that mean? Balance. What are we balancing? There is no, here's the dark, here's the light, and the mind on the mental plane is always doing this, is always playing in dark, heavy emotions, and then something good will happen in life and it will run over here and play in the light like, oh my gosh, can you believe what happened, and I'm getting married, and this has happened, and they love me, and it's a beautiful story, right? They're playing in the light, beautiful story, and then something happens because they're playing with another mind, and they break up, or they leave them, or they treat them really bad, and now they're back they run back over here, they're back in the dark. Okay, so either way, they're constantly doing this, and as they're doing this, their emotional body is doing this. So they're down one day and up the next day, and it's like this. And the people who are coming now that are connecting with me are saying, I'm really tired of that. And I've been trying to find that space of emotional stability. And maybe I've been reading spiritual books, and I've been listening to people like Eckhart Tolle, and I've been listening to spiritual teachers, and I hear them talk about it. And everybody's talking about the same, they're using different language, but they're talking about the same space. And the space that they're talking about, the Taoists, the Buddhists, the Christians, even, like in the Bible, like if you know what they're trying to say, you're like, yeah, you just said the same thing, just in a different language. They're trying to find the opening, the door to the spiritual space. And it is a narrow, straight is the way, and narrow is, well, I don't know. I can't remember the verse, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It's in the Bible. Straight is the way, narrow is the path to salvation. Anyway, it's right here in the center of the seesaw, and it's a very narrow space. But if you can focus your consciousness on it long enough, that space starts to open, which is spiritual strength. Okay, it takes strength to not be distracted by the mind and go back into the seesaw and playing the game. You stay right here, and the mind starts talking to you about this and that and them and that situation and that situation, and you say, I'm focused. I'm not worried about that right now. I want to go into this space of balance, of harmony, of peace, of power, of I know it's there. I know it's there, and I'm focusing really intently on this space. And how does that space feel? It feels like relief. So if that helps you when you're focused, you're like, well, what am I focusing on, Angie? Like I get that. I get that I'm supposed to be focusing, but what am I focusing on? Focus on the feeling in your body. Use your physical body to help you get there, of relief. What does relief feel like? What does contentment feel like? Not worried about anything. What does fulfillment feel like? I'm not worried about anything either. Like it's all there. I have everything I need, and there's relief. So you're focusing in on that space of relief. And every time you're able to hold your focus and not let the mind pull you back out and say, oh, you better look at this, and you better take care of this, and you better worry about this, and you better fix this problem. Every time you say, I don't care about that. Like, I'm not worried about the mental game anymore, and the physical world stuff that I normally am worried about. I'm not in that plane right now. I'm focusing on my soul space. Outside of that, I'm coming in here, in this space. Every time you're able to say no to the mind and its distractions and buying into what it says is important, Every time you say no, you get stronger and you get soul strength. And when you do, that opening that is very narrow at first, if you've never that it gets a little bigger and it expands a little more. And what you've done is now you are making space within you that was normally filled with all of this noise and content and all this language about everything and judgment and opinions, and you're making space now. And now you're expanding. And now you're it's starting to build within you. Okay? And you can do that on your own. However, some people reach that space, and I'm not going to talk about that today, but there is a way to reach that space while playing the game with the mind, but I don't recommend it. Okay? Where two people, two souls agree to hold an opposite end of the extreme. One is holding an extreme end in the light. One is holding an extreme end in the dark. And they're a perfect match on that seesaw to where they're holding a balance together. And when those two people come together, they can access that spiritual space, which is what, those intense relationships that are on a whole nother level, that is what they're accessing together. However, one person scoots back a little bit this way, and it happens, and then one person scoots back a little bit, or just any little thing takes that balance off. Now they're in a major drama together. But then they'll come back, they'll find their balance again, and then they open the space, that spiritual space. What does that feel like? And that space, when you're reaching it with another person, can be addictive. And it feels like intense. It's hard to put words on it because we're trying to use a mind to put language on a spiritual space. It stimulates chemicals in your body. It puts you in a state of bliss. It puts you in a state of knowing nothing matters because you've accessed it. And you get addicted to that. And because you reached it from a space of a relationship standpoint with another person, the mind says it takes its eyes off of the space itself, which is what gave it that feeling in the first place, and it puts its eyes on this person and attaches and says they're what's making me feel this feeling. Them and their, I don't know what this is, I've never felt this before. They hold an opposite extreme. Where you're super negative in an area of your life, they're super positive in that area of their life. But not in a healthy way, just like your darkness is not in a healthy way, that their positivity is not in a healthy way because it's over. Here is the space where you're not playing in extremes. You're just here, and this is the place of stability. And this is the spiritual space. And this is where you find your soul strength. Why do we want soul strength? Because the stronger we become in being able to hold our attention here and saying no to the mind, now we are in charge. We're still attached to a mind, but we're in charge. The mind's not possessing us anymore and dragging us around, causing us to make all kinds of bad choices, causing us to do all kinds of behaviors that end in drama and pain. Our suffering, the amount of suffering that we do and struggling that we do emotionally, calms down, I'm not saying you will never have a negative emotion move through your physical body, move through that space. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is all of the mentally created dramas and pain subsides. All of the stories that leave you crying in the bed at 8 and 9 and 10 o'clock at night, telling you how alone you are and how nobody wants you and how you're not good enough, all of that is a lie. And the more you come here to this space, those lies start to be purged from you. Space is being made. No lies can exist. When this is your focus, all those beliefs, all those things that you believed about yourself, and wherever they came from, at whatever point in your life, they start to dissolve in this energy, in this expanded energy. I don't want to call it the light, because in my analogy, the light is as dangerous as the dark. But the power, the in between. So how we get more soul strength, how we get more of that, is through shifting our focus throughout the day away from feeding the mind and the stories that it tells us. That's basically it in a nutshell. How we get stronger to come to this space of stability is to be able to resist, I hate to use that word, but to not be sucked in and lured in by the mental plane. And for most of us, we've lived there. And so we have to start to unravel from all the stuff that has us tied to that mental plane. And all the thoughts and all the beliefs. We have to start untangling from that and practicing our soul strength. So I hope this helps give you some idea. We'll talk more about this soul strength thing. But that is what we're doing this year in Soul Strong, and we started back in December. And the reason I started it is because I had a moment of popping out of my mind, like I call it popping out. But I had been so tied up in my mind for a very long time. I knew about this space here, but my mind was still stronger than I was mentally stronger than I was spiritually strong. And so I knew when I popped out, and how I came out of that mental space was I got sick. I got sick around Thanksgiving and ran a fever for about a week. I was taking like ibuprofen or whatever, but I guess I had such a high fever that I was having like hallucinations and really weird dreams. And I really think that for about a week, I was not feeding my mind, but I was feeding this spiritual space of existence that I rarely visited because I was too busy making a life for myself, right? Making sure I had a career and I was making money, or I was too busy off with my mind, worried about those type physical world types of things, and I was not taking time to feed my spiritual self. And so it was so weak, and so I couldn't hold myself there. And so I spent about a week in that space, not on purpose, but I think the universe has a way of getting you there when you need to get there. And I spent about a week in that. And when I started getting well and getting better, of course, my mind perked back up and whatever. But I had this moment of just, you can't put words to it, but everything was, I was so detached from anything in the physical world. I was so detached from anything I didn't care about anything my mind said. Yeah, but what about, when I woke back up, it was like, well, what about this? I don't, I actually don't care. Like, this feeling that I have right now, this is what I've been after the whole time. This is what I've thought, that doing all these things, and finally making it, and this relief that I feel is what I was trying to get through all the doing that I was doing in the physical world with my mind, and all the scheming and planning and trying and whatever. I already had it, and I knew it, and I didn't think it could get any better than that. I was like, I am in such relief. And I don't want to leave this space. But I had been there before. And my mind always takes me back over. And I knew it would happen. And I was like, I'm going to do something different this time than I did the last time. I'm going to visit this space every day. And I knew that if I just said I was going to do it, I wouldn't do it. And I knew I needed accountability. So that's when I started the Soul Strong group. And I started writing in a journal. And you can join that group. It's $4.99 a month. It's called Soul Strong. You can look at in the comment box below, after, not right now, but after this post, not live, and you can join us there. But I started a journal back in December, and I've been doing that every day, and that's what this is. This is up till today's date. This is April the 8th, and this is our journal entry for today. And I've connected so that I could refresh my memory and I could get stronger. So you have to come back to it. If you want to get stronger in that space, you have to visit it. You have to, how do you visit it? You have to put your conscious attention on that space. And how do you do that? I'm going to tell you again. You focus on the feeling of relief in your body. Even if you set a timer and for 5 minutes, 3 times a day, you said, I'm going to come here and I'm going to focus on the feeling of relief. And you're going to hear your mind try to pull you back out of that, okay? And you're going to say, you know what? No, I'm committed to here. I'm connecting to here. And I know there's energy here. And I want to tap in. It's kind of like putting your phone on the charger. I want to tap into this energy. And there is such power in that energy. And all that, the stuff you've been trying to do with your mind, changes, because now you're doing it from your soul space, and there's a different, you just don't waste time doing a lot of unnecessary things anymore. So I started the journal so that I could stay anchored. I needed to anchor myself and remember it's not about making a life for myself. It's not about me even. It's not about a personal me. It's about being here and observing. And if a fear comes up, either through me or in another person, I recognize that fear and I allow that fear to pass. It's about cleaning out all the fears. It's about holding a space so that all this fear can be replaced with this unconditional love. It's about bringing that unconditional love energy into this experience. And it's pretty simple. And when you're not all distracted about trying to and you start using your trust muscles also. There's a lot of trust and faith in this soul space, because you're having a relationship with something, an energy that is larger, and you can call it God, you can whatever you want to label it, you can, but it is an energy, a force, a creative force that is bigger than a personal me. And that is what you're having a relationship with. That is what you're visiting. That is what you're connecting to. That is what you're plugging back into. Every time you consciously make a choice to shift your attention to this soul space. It's like going to the gym. You know, we're going to go 5 days this week. If you go 5 days a week to the gym and spend 30 minutes or an hour or whatever you do, your muscles are going to get stronger, right? And it's the same. You have to visit this space. You can't just ignore it and it's going to get stronger. It's just not. You have to give it your time and your energy and your focus. You have to give it your undivided attention, which means the mind can't pull you off, because every time it's able to pull you off, it gets stronger. Every time you're able to say, no, that's not what we're doing right now, we're doing this, then the soul space gets stronger. I hope that's making sense. This is already 30 minutes, so I'm going to end it here. But we'll talk more about it in our next journal entry. Thank you so much for being here with me and Soul Strong. Have a great day.